Bitcoin is getting closer and closer to my $130,000 higher term time frame Elliott Wave count. In this video, I'm going to be sharing some practical tips of how we can be trading this very strong breakout when we can start to recognize local lower term time frame weakness, and how this comes to a practical sense of actually trading the charts right now. Because I know a lot of people will be full on super emotional. Either one side of the coin, you got a lot of people that are sad from missing the move. On the other side of the coin, you got a lot of euphoric people that are making a lot of profit on the move. We kind of don't want to be on either side of those coins. We just want to be focused on the charts, on the technicals, and just let the market tell the story, okay, of what's happening and what's going to be looking, what we're looking for next in terms of high probability trade setups, and also managing those long trades that we have from lower. We don't want to be closing them too early. We don't want to be, taking unnecessary short trades. So, I'm just going to give you my best analysis here and jump over to the charts. So, as I mentioned, we are heading closer and closer to this $130,000 zone that I have on Bitcoin. And this was presented back on a video around a month ago now, right? I shared this really nice video for you all where I was explaining where we have targets, starting from around $130,000 to $150,000 zone. And this was off of my higher term time frame Elliott Wave count. I really recommend you watch that video before you continue on with this one, really. But not a requirement. But this was a nice video explaining that higher term time frame Elliott Wave count from which has been going on a few years now. And so from this, the first thing that I really want you to understand is having this higher term time frame bias, which is, bullish, and then how on lower term time frames we can look for weakness, we can look for short trades. And, when you understand that, because it truly is so important, I know so many people are ultra confused. How can you be looking for shorts on a lower term time frame when your higher term time frame bullish? This makes no sense. It does make a lot of sense. Why? Because on the lower term time frame here, and I'm referring to 5-minute charts up to a maximum of 30-minute charts, right, where we can look for some scalp short trades here. You can see there are some opportunities. For example, here we saw a retracement around 0.5%. Here we saw a retracement of around 2%. Here we saw a retracement of around 0.8%. I actually did not take any of those short trades, but I'm just highlighting to you there are some minor pullbacks within the trend. So there is, of course, opportunity for shorts if you are very good with the entry. But again, this video is not to focus on, where are all the short trades, but it's just to make you aware of, there are lower term time frame setups, because at some point, we will get a bigger retracement. This is just not, it's not going to go vertically up forever. And so the advantage of, taking a few short trades when you got a good high probability setup is that when that bigger retracement does come, right, you're in a lot of peace. You can be a lot stronger looking to buy the dip, rather than, if you're in no short trade and a dip comes, it's always a slight little bit more, psychologically harder to take a long. For me anyway, if I'm in no short trade and I got an epic long, I'll still take it, but it's a lot easier for me to take a really nice long trade when I've already got a short in profit. So that's just, psychologically for me, and I'm passing on that tip, a position that I personally do like to be in. That said, though, I still have absolutely no short trades open at all here on Bitcoin. So that hasn't changed. And I, of course, still hold a lot of my longs from lower down in the price. I still have longs open from $30,000. But, I've still got my longs from around $100,000, the $105,000 long that I called. And then yesterday called another long, which was off of a fake out of the mini range low. So this was a simple case, right, where we had to plan the trade, which was a simple move down to around $105,000, fake out that mini range low, swing failure pattern. That gave us the long trade trigger. And it progressed very nicely throughout the day, right? We got the swing failure pattern, we got the retest of the CC, and well, it's a simple case, like I say, of plan that trade that plan. So I've got, several long trades open right now. We're getting no short trades open at all. And, for me, just showing some posts here from within the Discord. Again, this, last night, still no short trades, all in longs. And again, this morning, still no short trades, heavily in longs. We're up another, nearly $1,000 from here as well. So, and what I wanted to say before I finally end on this little section is understanding, like I've been saying throughout this week, I've took a few different trades. They've all been very small wins, break-even trades, small loss, right? That includes a few different scalp short trades that I was taking as well. And they were all like really minor small trades. And then we finally get that big home run trade. How I was explaining this if you watch my videos throughout this week. I was just looking for those minor trades, right? Get the take profit one. I got stopped out the rest of the trade. Got another trade, take profit one. I got stopped out the rest of the trade. So it's like these minor small wins Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And then Thursday came along and it gave us the absolute home run. This long trade went way better than what I could have imagined, right? So it was a simple case of getting that swing failure pattern from the mini range low, and this has ended in our absolutely home massive run, because we've gone from 110 to nearly $119,000 in one day. Made a tweet yesterday. That's my whole. Well, again, this is not how I'm paid by it, but I made the whole year's worth of expenses in one day. You could literally on one trade pay for like 10 years of Champions membership, right? It's just like putting that into perspective. That the trade is that massive home run. 10 years membership paid for in a trade, and it's like, that's what you're, that's the trades that you do get. They come around, once a week. Let's say you get, 4 days minor trades, and then you get that big nice trade that instead of getting take profit one stopped out, it absolutely runs. And this trade has done absolutely that. So that then brings me on to some practical tips of how we can be looking to trade this from a lower term time frame perspective, and analyzing it and still keeping in picture the higher term time frame. Of course, this refers to the higher term time frame Elliott Wave counts that we got going on. Of course, Severin also sharing his higher term time frame targets on the fractal, which timed and publicly called the exact low of the move, by the way, just below $100,000 on Bitcoin. So you got higher term time frame fractals, Elliott Wave counts, all of it, was pointing towards these higher term time frame targets towards $130,000, and even the dip below $100,000 before we are getting what we got now, the all-time high. So these fractals and these Elliott waves are truly the higher term time frame picture that you've got to be remembering when you're down on these lower term time frames. And why do I mention that? Because let's say if you become too focused on these lower term timeframes, let's say we get our first sign of weakness, which could be at this point, right? That's a resistance. Look at that perfect resistance support flip. I mean, that is just so technically perfect. But let's say we start to see our first local sign of weakness. Let's say that's breaking some market structure, getting pat tests. And at this point, let's say we're looking for another move to the downside. What a $1,000 to $2,000 move to the downside. If you become totally like focused only on this, and you are only interested in this one short, and you forget about the higher term time frame picture, then of course you're forgetting the most important part, which is the higher term time frame, right? These little scalp trade retracements on the weakness that you get, on the confluence that you get on those time frames. You have to remember that this is still trading against the higher term time frame trend, which has been bullish for over a year now, right? So that's just one thing that I see in the comments, and I think is the biggest tip that I can give to people really here is do not forget the higher term time frame picture, right? Just because we will look to, I could make a video tomorrow saying, I'm in a new short trade, and I'm very happy with this short trade. It's in some profits, but that doesn't mean I'm closing my long trades. It doesn't mean I'm forgetting about, it's still likely we're going to break another new high here, because I'm happy and I'll take a short, but the higher term time frame is still very bullish. So that doesn't mean I'm scared or worried to take these short trades. It just means we've got to be understanding the first take profit is very key, protecting ourselves with the stop loss in place. And of course, not closing those long trades that we have open from lower. So first of all, then, where would we start to say, well, I think actually fair enough on this lower term time frame. This is going to be our first local sign of weakness. If we break down this resistance support flip with an MS change, so market structure change. At this point, we would have lost that resistance support flip. We could have changed the market structure here, and that's where I would start to say local signs of weakness. Again, you gotta be, let's say, a bit brave in taking the short trades in this environment, because let's be honest, it's still not the highest probability trade, but nevertheless, you gotta, again, there's two sides of the coin. You can take those aggressive short trades, or you can wait patiently for the dip that would come off of that and look for the long only. That's something only you as a trader can decide. I personally would take a short and then a long at the support that is given off of it. But again, everybody has their own trade strategy, right? And so right now, when we zoom out a little bit, I mean, it's so clear what's going on here. Look at this: low, high, higher, low, higher, high, higher, low, higher, high, higher, low, higher, high, higher, low, higher, high. You know, we've got a lot of space here for a retracement to maintain higher term time frame. This is the 1 hour market structure. I think 1 hour to 30 minutes is the most effective here to be looking at. And I would just be doing something really simple, and that's adding on an anchored VWAP from the low here of our last major, higher low that was put in, of where this impulse started to get. Well, actually, there's three places I would look at. Number 1, number 2, and number 3. I think number 3 is going to be our most relevant today, we could say. It's going to be the most closest to price action. Those are 3, though, anchored VWAP pools that I would 100% be looking at. I think this, we could say, is going to be our most relevant of the day. That's where it got very impulsive, yesterday, 2:30, literally where we took this long trade yesterday. So where we took this long trade yesterday, what is where, in essence, where the impulse actually started. So that's funny. We timed the exact low of the move yesterday. There's no hindsight there. You can check the confirmation. Of course, the plan was shared in advance, but then the confirmation given, before the pump happened. Well, we can check for ourselves, right? Because we're going to come down onto this local price action. Pump really started to get underway fully around 5 p.m. The retest there on the lower term time frame of the CC you had around 3:30. So after the post of what we could say confirmation that the long is given, I've taken that. You had another 15 minutes to secure the long trade. But yeah, that was the exact low of the move. So of course I'm very proud about that. But nevertheless, that's also where I'd be saying is the important pivot of the anchored VWAP, because that's where it got impulsive. So you can see that support coming in. I would always give this a few $100s. This is not what I would say is an exact dollar, but a few $100s there. We can see that that's coming in at around $115,000. Also look at the, you can see there, look at this, the point of control of this as well is coming in there at around 116. So we got a nice $1,000 zone of support. Again, we're going to have to see a little bit more confluence here, but we're starting to build up a picture of, okay, this is a really nice support level. Doesn't mean it's going to hit today, but if and when that hits, it's a very nice support level. I would be looking at a standard Fibonacci pool from high to low and just put this on. Okay, so we'd have around a 382 retracement from the impulsive start, and from our last, let's call this really our last major higher low to the high. We got the 382 coming in around the 236, so we can start to see it's not perfect. It doesn't line up perfectly, but that 382 does line up a lot better. You can see there, $15,500. So we can start. I would definitely say that this is for me the most obvious support level here. Things that I would look for on the lower term time frame if and when this starts to come into effect. Let's say we do break down here and we get a retest. Okay, so we get a bit of a retest, just so you can visualize this. I think this is the easiest way for people to visualize what's happening, right, when I draw the lines. So if you get this retest, and this is where you would then have the another and maybe the most perfect step of confirmation of a high, low, and then back into the retracement. You would then have the one-to-one extension. So I really like to look at these one-to-ones, because that then gives you this kind of move where you got then that epic kind of confluence for another continuation. So I would definitely look to add on that one-to-one. So I think when we talk about local signs of weakness, yeah, I think, let's keep it simple, right? Keep it simple is a very nice thing to do when you're in this type of trend. The trend right now is very bullish. It's totally intact. Our first minor sign of weakness would be breaking the resistance support flip, and then with a market structure change. Again, if you are aggressively opposed on this market, you can take a short trade there, and you can maybe look to take it down to around 115k. Again, not financial advice, so do whatever you want there. It really makes no difference to me. But I personally would look to take a short, and then I would look to take the long then around 115,000. And I always will say this. I like to be in this scenario. Let's say Again, right now, I do not think it's the highest probability. I do think we can get another move to the upside. But let's say we get this and, we get a short around $120,000, let's say. Doesn't ignore the fact that this is still a nice support level. Let's say I managed to get into an aggressive short trade around 120K. This is just for education. Say I managed to get into this short trade around, this $120,000 zone. Oh, lovely. Well, this would be off of a lower term time frame entry trigger, right? And then price makes its way down here and we start to get a retracement. Well, I love to, as I mentioned before, I love to be in this position where I have a short from the high and then we come down here, we have a long from the lows. Well, what does this put us in? It puts us in then, if we get a bit of a bounce to the upside, we can have locked in take profit one on the short, we could have locked in take profit one on the long, for example, or you could have took no profit on either at this point, but you would have your stop loss set at entry price on the short, stop loss set entry price on the long, for example. And then if the market pumps, you get stopped out that short. It's no worries, right? It really doesn't matter. You get stopped out the short, the long continues to run for profits. And if it does dump, then you get stopped out of the long and the short runs for more profits. This is always my preferred scenario. That's why I kind of find it a little bit funny. I did take 2 short trades over this week of price action. I took 2 short trades. A lot of people, especially, today, oh, Daniel, did you get liquidated on a short trade? How's your short trades do? A lot of sarcastic comments like this. But I truly, this is just the way that I trade. I still had long trades. I still expected higher prices. But I did have a few valid short trades taken, around the biggest one, right, was from, there's 110, where it did drop down to 107. That was a very valid short trade. Then I had another one from 109. Dropped down to 107 again. So, these were 2 valid short trades. And of course, they both got stopped out in the end. And, this is what I mean. They were just 2 minor trades. Then I got the long from here. Well, that long has been my home run trade. The short trades were closed. Nothing to talk about at the end of the day. We move on. We look for another trade setup. The long trade, that's been my home run trade. But, where I really want to end with this is my final bit of analysis is a bit of a summary, I suppose. Yeah, right now I'm in no short trades. I am in all my long trades. Is there any sign of weakness yet? Well, the answer to that is still no. As I've been saying around here every single step of the way. Still no short trades. Still no short trade. There's no weakness. So why would I take a short just randomly? I do have to have a good setup to take a short. So unless that comes, well, then we can look for a drop. And I think that's important support sits at around, again, this is a bit of a zone, $115,000 to $116,000. We got we got the best confluence that you're going to see on this local term time frame from a all-time high breakout. Okay. Will I be scared to take a short? No. Will I be happy to take a long there? And it's the same thought process, right? Let's say I get a long trade here and then price rises and then price dumps massively. Well, my stop loss is going to be here. It's not like I'm still going to be holding on to this long if tomorrow we're trading at $108,000, right? No, the long got stopped out. It was a minor loss on that scalp long. Well, we move on, right? It's a new day. So that is kind of my thought process here. Again, do not forget the higher term time frame picture. This is where you have to remember if you get the pullbacks, it's not really a worry at the end of the day. You've still got major fractal Elliott Wave Targets above us. So, do not get scared in that regards. But yeah, I think that's the importance here. My final tip, remember, lower term time frame setups can be against the higher term time frame trend. You don't want to close swing long trades when you're in a scalp short trade, right? It just doesn't make sense. And that's something that I think a lot of people, can help themselves and really study and journal about. So yeah, that was my, relatively, it wasn't that quick, I suppose, but hopefully was helpful analysis of explaining how we can look for that local weakness. And how right now it's pretty evident that we still do not have any. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you want more, you know where to get it. Chartchampions.com, full educational library, live trading streams. You've got more live trading streams today. And of course, that's where you also get those epic trade setups like I was sharing yesterday, timing the absolute low of the market and not just giving the trade setup, but also, confirming that I've taken that long in the Discord prior to that massive pump, What can I say? That was a very nice trade. Hope you've enjoyed. Thank you ever so much. And that's me signing out. Cheers. Thank you, and goodbye.